All right, welcome in. Today I have Ashely Rogers with me. I'm excited to have Ashely here. She is women's coaching specialist, mom, nutrition coach. Her company's called Level Up Strength. Her thing is Muscle Mommy or Mommy Muscle Mommies.
Muscle mommies, yes.
Muscle Mommies. Okay. Strong as a mother, right? Like just a badass mom, quite honestly, who has 3 kids and just really excited to have Ash come on here and share a lot about her perspective, which I think is refreshing and somewhat unique from the perspective of moms and motherhood and being strong in the face of a lot of the things that this generation we grew up with, hearing and kind of combating that. So I want to start there actually. But first of all, thanks for coming on and taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For sure. So one of the things that I remember, it was one of the first things that I saw, not maybe one of the first things I saw, but one of the things that I remember I was looking back through, and you did a testimonial with one of your clients, and she said something along the lines of, my kids always grew up thinking that work out to be small, and my kids aren't going to see that. Mommy works out to be strong. So
it's my favorite testimonial from Sam. Yeah.
So good. If I'm gonna
I just got goosebumps
yeah,
thinking about
I'm
it.
gonna I'll link that video in the description, because it's about as good a summer. I was like, this is the best testimonial I might have ever seen from a mom who probably grew up with this. And it's a testimonial to you and to the work that you do. And also very Molly Galbraith, who runs Girls Gone Strong. Like that's her big thing. And who's fantastic. And I've met Molly, and she's sensational. She like one of the best, who is about Amy actually, who was just on here. One of the posts that I've had that's gone off is based on a quote from Molly, which is 85% of women avoid doing things that they really want to do because they don't feel beautiful enough to do it.
Yeah.
And so Molly's fantastic, but this idea of strong versus small almost in that juxtaposition. So as you think about kind of a little bit of your introduction into this, so kind of tell your story a little bit into this, ways that you kind of grew up with this, and then how has that shifted for you in the small versus strong kind of flying in the face of mainstream that we kind of grew up with.
So, I'm in my mid 30s. Most of my clients are mid to late 30s. We grew up in the 90s where, we said the word in the video, like heroin chic was an actual term, right?
Bad.
Like so bad. And I hated even saying that, but like it's true. Like it was like, be as skinny as possible. Like, and it was the age of the Victoria's Secret model, right? Like tall and painfully skinny. And I'm not very tall. And I'm about 5'3". I know on the internet it's hard, especially like in our mentorship too. I'm always sitting there like, I wonder how tall everybody is.
Well, like when I went and saw John in person, because I knew John was tall, but I'm like, holy cow! I've never had a short, like I've never been like, oh, I'm short, until I hung out with John for 2 weekends in a row, and I'm like, dude, he's a massive individual. Or Molly, like Molly was the first person I saw when I went to Dallas, and I was like, Molly's like 6 feet tall. And
which I'm sure gives her own insecurities too, 100%, right?
And strong as anything too. But yeah, she's not. Yeah. If you were to do that, and like one of her big things was that post that went viral was, like I don't have a goal to change my body, but like for her to combat that and be like, this is not my body type. Yeah, sorry, but it's
she's an inspiration for so many of us coaches now, but. In the 90s, it was shrink it and pink it, right? Like everything was, have you heard that term, or has it been a hot minute?
I don't know if I ever heard that one.
Shrink it, like for women, like if there's something in fitness for women, make it smaller and make it pink, right? like small weights, small
Yeah.
pink weights. Like think back to the 90s and it's like the small pink, like my mom had them. My mom was a personal trainer in the 90s and it was a lot of cardio. It was at that point it was non-fat everything. Carbs weren't the bad guy yet.
Yep.
It was fat free everything, and it was just about being as skinny as possible and as low of a number on the scale as possible. And there was no talk about body composition or anything, right? So everybody in my family is very tall and very blonde. And like I said before, like I'm not blonde and I am not tall. So then there was that comparison even within the family. So not just within society, but then like I don't look like any of these models, but then also I don't look like the people within my family.
Yep.
I just tended to have a more muscular body. And at that time, that wasn't looked at as a good thing. Now it's great. Like I can put on muscle pretty easy and that's a really good thing. But back in the 90s, like there weren't muscular women, right? We were in so many ways physically and mentally told to be small.
Yeah.
Right. We were to be as skinny as possible, to be as quiet and as, compliant as possible. And we're just, I think, as adults, a lot of us are just trying to deal with these things now. And that's a lot of what I deal with in my coaching is the mental aspect is so much harder than the physical. And I posted about that the other day is you're not going to be able to do the physical work until you've put in that mental work of why do I feel like I have to be small?
Yeah. So when you think about that piece, because I 100% that it's I did an episode on this recently, but the idea of like start the idea of start with why, but like you got to go deeper than just like why, but like
Yep.
why don't I want to be here, and why what does it look like for me to be there? Like not just I'd like to be X on the scale. Well, that's like saying I want to go to Paris. Like, do you want to go to the airport? Or do you want to sit in front of the Eiffel Tower and eat bread and cheese and drink wine and have a strolling bite? Like that's something you could taste, feel, experience. And that's enough for you to want to save for it. Just the ambiguous idea of Paris is not enough to drive you to sacrifice to get there. And so understanding the why of, on the flip side of it, why do you feel like you need to be there? So as you dive into that with clients, because I would love to dig into this with you, because be physically and mentally as small as possible was a bar, like, and it's heartbreaking to be mentally small as well. So what is it? What did that mean to be mentally small? And how do we kind of start to think through why as a woman or even just a guy, right? Like there's different,
Right.
we can apply this in different ways. When we're thinking about being small or being a certain way, why do we feel like we have to be that way? How do we dig into that and combat that mental side of it?
Yeah. So I have this worksheet that I go through with my clients, and nothing's as simple as a worksheet. You're not going to solve all your problems in a worksheet, but it's things that people haven't thought about, and it is challenging your negative core beliefs. And we all have these negative core beliefs that we're not aware of, that are typically, brought about in childhood. Like, one of mine, when we talk about feeling the need to be mentally small, is that I was too much, right? Because as a child, I was told by my parents that I was bossy, right? Where my brother was assertive. So
Interesting.
language is very important.
Yeah.
Or I was too loud, or I was outspoken. So the verbiage that was chosen for my personality. And I don't think my parents were ever trying to be malicious.
No.
You start forming those negative core beliefs about yourself of like, oh, okay, well, I'm too much for people. So if I want people to like me, I need to be less. I need to put myself in a smaller box so that people will accept me. Right? And then you add in the physical aspect. And it's just this like heartbreaking image of literally women making themselves as small as possible, and quieting themselves. And it's taken a lot to undo that. And it's been facing those negative core beliefs. But you have to name it before you can fix it. So some of these are like, what were you told about the scale when you were growing up? Right? And then we talk through it, or typically I have them do this by themselves. And I tell them, like, put aside a good hour and make sure it's quiet, and you're probably going to cry. Like this, there's going to be a lot, like, this is the hard mental work. This isn't surface level bullshit, right? So then what is the negative core belief from this, right? So if you were told as a child, the lower the weight on the scale, the more attractive you are, or the lower the weight on the scale, the better, then maybe your negative core belief is, I'm more lovable if the number on the scale is lower.
Yeah.
And that carries over through life. And then, so step one is we've named that negative core belief. Step two is we need to challenge it, right? Is this true? Are you really more lovable? Like, do people actually love you more when the number on the scale is lower? Do people actually have any idea what the number on the scale is?
Yeah.
Right? Like, nobody knows how much I weigh. I weigh a lot more than I did before I put on muscle.
Yeah.
And I was a lot thinner before.
Yeah.
Right? Body composition matters.
I tell people all the time, I weigh as much now as I did when I was in my worst shape.
Yeah.
It just looks different.
And you can put two people next to each other that are the same exact height, same exact weight, and they can look completely different.
Yep.
And then also when you're challenging that negative core belief, whose voice are you hearing? Is that your own voice?
Oh my gosh.
Or is it a parent's voice? Is it a celebrity's voice? It's typically not your own. And then step three is flipping that negative core belief into a positive. And so I am lovable despite the number on the scale. I am lovable no matter what my body looks like, because I am not my body, right? My body matters.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, right? Everybody wants to look good. Everybody wants to feel good. But I am not my body. So I have a series of, I think, 5 negative core beliefs that we go through. The scale, food. What were you taught about food growing up? You know, like, because a lot of what I do is good food versus bad food mentality.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big believer in food is food. We need to stop assigning morality to food, and then stop assigning morality to yourself based off of the food that you eat.
Yeah.
So challenging those negative core beliefs is a huge part of sustainable change. I believe that that's why people yo-yo diet, is because they get the quick fix, but then they're just playing into that negative core belief of, I'm more lovable when I'm thinner.
Yep.
And then they gain the weight back, and then they're just looking for that next quick fix to feed into that negative core belief. And I don't really think we can maintain anything until we've healed that, I guess, like, body trauma.
Yeah. This is so interesting. One, all I did in that moment, and you're right, like, we all have were impacted by the things from our childhood. And I have great parents, but those things impacted, and I'm sure the same thing with your, you know what I mean? Like, it just reminds me of the stakes of parenthood.
Oh my God.
And it's like, I like almost can't think about it, because I'm just like, the joke is like, you do something and you're like, that'll be something you talk about in therapy when you grow up. Like, you're welcome for that. Like, I'm keeping the therapy business. And
very specific moment. I had just had my third baby. He was a COVID baby. So like we weren't going to the gym. We were ordering food. Like I gained 50 pounds with him. I was feeling like absolute shit. Like he was born in August of 2020. So literally in the thick of COVID.
Yeah,
and I remember
April 2020. It was
just so I remember just looking in the mirror and thinking about like how awful I looked. And like I was wearing shorts, and I just remember thinking about how awful my legs looked. And my daughter, who was 4, walks up, and she is looking at me, looking at myself. And I look at her and I look in the mirror and I was like, wow, my legs look so powerful. And she walks up in the mirror and she's like, yeah, my legs look so powerful too. And I, you know, in that moment was like, dude, I need to snap out of this, because they're always watching. And we're not 100%. Perfect. And we have those thoughts, but it's very important how I talk and, you know, act in front of my kids. Like when I am in a place where I'm counting calories or counting macros for whatever reason, you know, it's never that, oh, I'm doing this to lose weight or anything. It's I'm making sure I have the energy I need to lift the weights in the gym. It's making sure that I can add muscle. Because muscle takes food and energy. So it's making sure that we're always equating food to energy. And my daughter has literally, she's 7 now, looked at the back of like a bag of chips and looked at the calories. She goes, this has 300 energies. And I'm like, you are thermodynamically correct.
You do. 300 energies. I love that. That's
I mean, a calorie is a unit of energy. So
you are not wrong. That is about as accurate as it can get. Like, you know more than 3/4 of the people on the internet.
So
well, the language around. Well, the language is so interesting, because you said, like, whose voice are you hearing? Because sometimes it's that perceived piece of it. So sometimes it's the words, right? The like, I'm too much, and like you hear that, and I heard you say that, and I don't know, she probably wasn't the first person, but the first person I heard say this was Elise Myers. She was like, if I'm too much,
go find less.
Go find less. Freaking love that. Less. Go find less. But the idea of like, no, you're not. Too much is from somebody else's perspective.
Correct.
It's not. There's not an absolute for this. Just like there's not an absolute beauty standard. Now there are health standards for sure, and we can dive into that down the road. But like, and I think that we can swing the pendulum maybe a little bit too far the other direction, where you have people who like fat positive sort of thing.
I'd love to talk about that.
I would love to dig into that in a little bit, because I would love to hear your thoughts on it. But we go like the pendulum can go, but like we hear it sometimes not even in the explicit words, but through the actions and the perceptions of other people with so it's maybe on the scale piece, like you talked about, like you step on the scale, and you probably never heard somebody be like, oh, the scale is less, therefore you're more beautiful. Like, you probably didn't hear that, but you stepped on the scale at the doctor, and it was like that, like, oh, you lost, you know, whatever, like, hey, your weight's good, or whatever it is, like, it's good or bad, right? It's that sort of stuff. That's just, it's implied. It's not explicit. And so this is going to sound so strange, but I think it'll articulate it. We were watching Frozen 2 last night with the kids, and
such a good one.
So good. But at the beginning, when Kristoff is going to try to propose to Anna, and he's like trying to talk to her, and they're in the sleigh, and he's like saying something, and she's taking it like to the total, like, wait, no, that's not at all what I meant. And it's like meant to be hyperbolic, but like the idea, he says something on the like, he said, under different circumstances, this would be pretty romantic. And she goes like, you mean with somebody else? You know, like she takes something that is said and she perceives it to be like the most extreme. And it's kind of meant to like poke fun at like, I didn't say that. But
well, your perception is your reality.
Yeah. Expectations drive perception. Perception drives reality. And if we perceive how somebody else reacts, then that's going to tell us the story. And so we're hearing their voice, even if they didn't say it. We're like, oh, that's how they responded to me in that moment. And so I would love to kind of dig into that piece of it a little bit, as the naming it and perceiving it piece of it, and how we can kind of combat that piece of it, and realizing that like, what have we heard that maybe we didn't actually hear?
Yeah. Oh man. There's a lot there. Let me take a sip of coffee.
Yeah. This is two parents who are sitting here drinking caffeine at noon, just like, all right, come on, just keep it going today.
Yeah. Oh man, specifically, like, I'm trying to think of maybe things that I have heard that. So maybe weightlifting specific too.
Okay.
Implying that I am, and again, not exactly said, but implied, like, oh, I'm going to look like a man.
Yep.
Lifting weights, right? I lift a lot of weights. I don't look like a man.
No.
Okay. I don't have the testosterone level to put on the muscle that it takes to look like a man. Right? But that's what women hear, right? Yeah. And most women don't have the I don't want to say most women, most humans don't have the science background to understand what it takes to actually put on muscle, right?
Yeah.
So they just hear like, oh, if you lift weights, you're going to get really bulky, right?
Yep.
Something else that, like, if I didn't have the knowledge that I do, like, this probably would have really dug deep is, so I was in a 9-month bulk. No, I wasn't pregnant. That wasn't a joke. I was actually bulking.
I wasn't sure that's so funny.
No, I was actually bulking. I was in an actual bulk. I was not pregnant. No, I did 3 pregnancy bulks.
Let's just steer into it, man. Like,
those were not as enjoyable. I did not have enjoyable pregnancies.
No.
I was in an actual bulk putting on muscle. I put on 8 pounds, which is a lot for a woman, right? And now, understandably, that was not all muscle, right? No. There was some fat that came with that, which is normal during a bulk. And my cardiologist, I got on the scale. I'm not worried about it, right? I had a coach at this time. Like, I knew I was gold. Like, my measurements, my waist measurements were still great. I was feeling good. I was feeling strong. And he sat me down, my cardiologist, and was like, you've put on some weight. Oh, man. Okay, now, looking at it from his side, he's a cardiologist, right?
Yeah.
He sees the majority of his patients are like middle to upper age, white, overweight men.
Yeah.
Right? Who are probably there because they're overweight and not taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said to him, it's muscle.
Good for you.
And I said, do I look like I put on fat? And he was like,
pretty wet himself.
Oh my God, this woman is asking me if she looks like. But what other, like, how many women are going to do that, right?
No.
The majority of women are going to make themselves small.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to shrink down.
That's
because
a mistake.
Here's a man telling them that they have gained weight and defining their health by that number.
A man in power, a man of health, who supposedly knows what they're talking about. Oh, this is a problem. that
Who
must be
then,
addressed.
by the way, who is supposed to know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
As a health person, you'll love this diagnosis he gave me. Inappropriate supraventricular tachycardia. I was like, so this means my heart's beating fast inappropriately and you don't know why. And you just told me I gained weight. Like,
yeah.
Okay, sir. Like, I'm gonna go see someone else.
I've said this before, and I know a lot of incredible doctors, right? And I could never remove a tumor. I could never fix, do a quadruple bypass. But some of the I could try, but you'd probably die, right? Like
I do have a suture kit in my office here.
There you go. That sounds like something fun we should do when I come to Florida. It's just like, let's just try this. We could probably figure it out.
Actually, my 7-year-old daughter's. That's a different story. We can get into that.
But some of the worst nutrition and fitness advice I've ever heard has come out of the mouth of doctors. And they have said to me, ones that I trust, that I know, they's like, we get an hour of nutritional training during our entirety of med school. And so again, he has, from his perspective, he's like, this number generally correlates with this result, right? BMI is like, I am technically obese by BMI.
Correct. Yeah.
But if you were to look at me, you would say that is not what obese looks like.
Yeah.
And so, but again, from the perspective of like, if I don't know, and if you're a woman sitting there and you don't have that confidence and you hear that man in that context say, even if he didn't say you need to lose weight, but he just says,
you've gained weight.
You gain weight with that face and that expression and implying through his tonality, this is a problem. What are you going to do? What's the response going to be?
Yeah.
You're too much.
I'm too much.
Become less.
And what did I do? I became even more to him.
Yeah, I freaking love that response. Just that guy just absolutely needs a new pair of underpants.
I told Dre Maxwell, I was like, my phrase for 2024 is, if you thought I was too much in 2023, hold my beer. Because in 2024, I don't care anymore. Like, if you don't like me, just unfollow me, because I'm going to be too much.
Yeah.
Go find less.
Go find less. Like, there was a joke from a guy who I've said this before. I no longer can watch sports because I can't get through a half of football without my children wanting to put on Bluey or something like that. So I just can't watch sports anymore.
Okay. But Bluey, like,
Bluey's fantastic. Like, I'm not sitting here complaining. So good, but I can't get through it. And so my way of like getting a fix for sports is like, I watch people talk about sports. Like, that's my sports fix now. And one of the guys came on last year and he's like, my New Year's resolution is, because like you kind of have to be obnoxious in that field. He's like, my New Year's resolution is to be less humble. I was like, you know what? I love it. Like, just, and he was like, I crushed it. Like, I nailed it. Because he did. He was just like, I was right. I was right all the time.
We're taught, and again, to be small when we're younger, that like, if you talk about yourself in a good light, you're bragging.
Yep.
Now you can be obnoxious and
100%.
You can go overboard, right? And it's teaching your kids. How old is your oldest? You said
he's 3.5. He's 4 or 5 months older than yours.
You'll get there. My oldest is 11, right? And his nickname is Well Actually, because you'll be like, oh, during the French Revolution, and he's like, well, actually, it's it was in the year. I'm like, oh my god. So we have to sometimes. It's like, you know what, you can present yourself in a positive light without making others feel bad about themselves. Okay, so it's writing that line, but like. Why is it not okay to tell people we're awesome? Like, stop putting 100%. Yourself in small boxes. 100%. That's just what I want people to stop doing. Not just women, everybody.
Yeah. Just, Well, I just saw this a little bit earlier today. Big Little Feelings.
Yeah.
On social media. they have some good and some bad, but she said it in the context of she was telling a story. It was like, I don't know when the post was. It was from like today or yesterday, but she was talking about, she was at the gym and she said, I forget what the like title of the thing was, but it was basically like overly obedient kids become passive adults. And the idea of, she was at the gym and she got up in between sets and somebody asked her, like, sweet, like, are you done? And she said instinctively, like, yeah, I'm done. It's all yours. And she wasn't done. But it was when, and now there's a line with this, but if it's constantly like, no, be kind, don't do that much, right? Like, you have to share everything. Like, like there's some of this where it's like, no, you like, we have to be able to stand up for ourselves. Like,
yeah.
It's not that kindness is overrated, but there's a context to this where we can't get pushed over, because then that's become less. And you and Grazel did this post that was like, don't hide your light. And you guys both like just put fire pictures out on the internet, and you're like,
that was really scary.
I bet. I was like, and it was a weird thing. I was like, I'm not going to like this or comment on this because I just don't, like the context of it, like, good for you guys.
Private messages from my male friends that were like, because they didn't want to comment on it. And they were like, don't take this the wrong way, please.
Yeah, but I'm proud of you.
Yeah. This was a fire post. Like, you needed to do this. And like, as soon as I posted it, I messaged Dre and I was like, I want to delete it. She's like, do not delete that post. I was like, I want to delete it.
Yeah.
And then she was like, look at the males in OTM at some of their posts. They're showing more skin than you are. Why are you afraid?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, that's a good point.
Yeah. I don't do it, but that's for a different reason.
Yeah.
But the idea is, but I did it the first time I put a shirtless picture on the internet. I was like, I never wanted to do this, but I said I would do it because I can't ask my clients to do something that I'm not willing to do.
That is
like, why would my clients put a before and after photo on my page if I don't, if without their shirt on or in, whatever, if I am not willing to do that?
Mm-hmm. And for me too, it's so many women in general, not just my clients, but specifically my clients, but also women, like, they want to do boudoir shoots, right? Yeah. And they want to feel good while they're doing the boudoir shoot. And they feel like it's a point that you have to get to, right? Yep. When really, and this is going to kind of play into the body image and like the spectrum that you were talking about earlier. You need to feel good where you are. There's nothing wrong with having goals, right?
Yep.
So I'll let you know, like, and this is actually the first place I'm going to say this publicly. My ultimate goal for my program is a year-long program.
Yep.
Where then at the end, I give my client like a mini boudoir session.
Yeah, love it.
So like, it's all about body positivity and feeling confident. Enough to do that. And, it doesn't have to be like it can be more covered up. Yeah. But I just feel it's so empowering to be able to look at yourself that way and be like, whoa, I look like that. Like, I'm amazing. Right. And again, when Grazel and I talked about that, and we talked about it with Dre, and it's like, okay, well, if we're not able to talk about ourselves like that and feel like that about ourselves, how could we ever coach somebody to that point?
Yep. 100%.
Sorry, that is my bulldozer of an 11-year-old running through the house. I don't know if you can hear that.
No, but the mom side eye right there was outstanding. Like, I wasn't sure if they were in there and you were just locking.
No, he was like running down his friends here to come get him. So that's something else you have to look forward to. You just say bye.
Yeah. Well, I actually will. Yeah, I will look forward to that one. So let's dig into that a little bit, because I think this is an important thing, because I've said before the idea of like, people oftentimes think like the gym as a for instance, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna get myself in better shape and then I'll go to the gym or I'll go do some classes or whatever it is. And it's like, my parallel is like, that's like trying to you fix your car before you bring it to the mechanic. Like, it's literally why you go is is for them to fix. Like, you can, like, you drive in and your car's making funky noises and you're like a little bit embarrassed, but it's like, well, this is why you go. Like, you know, it's
Or like
come
you
as you.
clean your house before the housekeeper comes.
Yeah, I gotta pick up my house before the cleaner comes. I do that too because I'm like, I want the, you know, but it's like, that's the point of
The
it.
deep cleaning, though, it
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, they're gonna do the deep clean, but the idea is it's come as you are, and like, you have to be able to embrace where you start. I mean, I posted about this yesterday. It's like, you have to own the starting point, as hard as it is, um, and you're never gonna be like, it's okay to have physical goals. Like, it's not vain to have goals to change your body. However, like, you do, like, we got to thread this needle a little bit, because you can't just tell yourself to love yourself if you don't. But at the same time, you do need to not do it because you hate yourself. So as you
Correct.
kind of think through that spectrum, because there was 90s and even like early, like, I think about, you were talking about the, like, you lift weights, you're going to get bulky. I think about like Michael Scott in the episode of the Office where he's in his car and he's like got the 2 pounds out. I'm going for tone. I'm not going for size. Or like, I don't know if you ever did P90X. P90X, and he always said like 8 to 10 reps is size, 12 to 15 reps is tone. And I still hear that. I still hear Tony saying that. And that was the idea, is like, you do more reps, you do lighter weight, that's tone. You do this, you're going to get bulky, as if that's going to be right. So there's this side of it, which is,
you know, now, like with the most recent research, it's like, it's such a huge spectrum.
Yeah.
It's like, so, I mean, unless you're doing like 1 rep maxes of everything, right? Like,
no,
you're going to get strength everywhere. It's,
it all lives on the
and it comes to how much are you eating?
Yeah.
Right.
It all comes down to what you're eating. So, but this was where it was for a long time, it was on this side of it, become smaller. And now it's almost gone like through maybe a happy medium to the other side, which is like health at every size, and like, and I don't want to say like body positivity to a fault, but like, get a little bit dangerous in like recognizing that there are some absolutes in terms of health, and you want to feel good regardless of where you're at and not hate yourself. But so as you think about that spectrum and body positivity and the way that you work through it, how do you navigate that piece of it with you and with your clients?
It's so tricky, and just like everything, like, there's no one answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
My answer to what is body positivity is, you should love yourself where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
have goals for yourself to be better. Always. Yep. Always. Mm-hmm. I don't care where you are. Like, you know, I think you should always have goals to be better, whether those are physical or mental. But I will say, if your weight is causing health issues,
Mm-hmm.
you can still love yourself and love your body, right? But you should have goals to lose weight, to become healthier, and to feel better, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know when I had gained that 50 pounds from, you know, being pregnant with my other 9-month bulk,
that's a
I
heavy bulk.
I wasn't moving as well.
No.
Yeah, and that was not muscle.
No.
Like, I was not moving as well. I was injuring myself a lot. You know, I just had the extra weight. Like, my back was hurting all the time. I do have back injuries anyway, but I just didn't feel good. Like, I was out of breath more often. I already have autoimmune issues that, you know, like I said, I have a cardiologist that caused some heart issues. So my heart rate was up. My cholesterol, at a healthy weight is already almost 300. So imagine, it's hereditary.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah. And luckily I have a doctor who is like, look, you're fit. Like all your other blood work is good. Like
the opposite of the cardiologist.
The opposite of the inappropriate supraventricular tachycardia. But yeah, so that being said too, being thin doesn't mean being healthy.
Yes.
I have been my unhealthiest at my thinnest.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what everybody told me?
You look great.
You look great.
Yep. Ugh.
I have been going through a very, very hard time in my life over the last 3 months. Yep. I have lost almost 20 pounds. Wow. Yeah. And do you know what I keep hearing from friends? You look great.
What are you doing? It's called
I just am. Yeah, what are you? Yeah, it's fucking anxiety. Yeah,
it's called mental.
Yeah. It's called mental health. Yeah. It's called I'm living off of coffee. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yep.
But I finally now I'm at a point where I go, hey, it's not helpful when you say that. Because I do come from, and my friends know, like, and I'm very open about this. I come from a history of disordered eating. And when you say things like that, it plays into that mentality.
This is going back to like what they say, the perception versus the reality. Like, oh, I'm better at this place. Yeah. Because I'm getting compliments when I'm smaller.
The autoimmune disease that I was just talking about. I have thyroid disease, Graves' disease, so hyperthyroidism. Yeah, I had it removed after my third child was born because I had a thyroid storm. But with Graves' disease, I don't know if you're familiar. Like when you go hyperthyroid, you lose a lot of weight because your metabolism's just on fire, literally. My heart rate was 200 at rest. Hence the cardiologist. And you just feel awful. Like you feel like you can't slow down. But again, like I was like maybe 100 pounds. I felt the worst I've ever felt in my life, but just kept being told, but you look great, Ashely.
Yeah.
But then, when I'm at 140 and I'm strong and I'm just at the end of a bulk and, my mom says something like, oh, like we're dress shopping. And she's like, oh, your dress size has gone up. It's like, yeah, it's gone up. Like my
dang right, I didn't work this hard.
I worked fucking hard, right? Like my lats are like, it's weird. Like my waist is still small. It's where, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a size 2 isn't zipping up over these lats anymore, okay?
Yeah, I can't fit over my dump truck of a butt now because I've been deadlifting.
When I call my coach and I'm like, I had to buy bigger pants, but it's like they're loose in the waist.
Yeah.
But I had to buy bigger pants for my quads and my butt, right? Yeah. Like it's about where, right? Yeah. So that's what body composition fucking matters.
Yeah. Well, Amy, who was just on, I've told this story before. Like it has a very similar story, and she's told this story before where, like, she comes and she does like a glute camp class with me. It's just like a lower body workout, strength workout. And like the idea of this class is not to get smaller, like we're
Who
putting
doesn't
like
want a dump truck butt.
I literally, when I was thinking about naming the class, there's Booty by Brett for Brett Contreras. Like that, I was like, I'm going to call this Dump Trucks by Delzell. And I was like, maybe that's not the right branding, but like,
I mean, you're talking to the wrong person. I fully endorse this. You're talking to the OTM meme queen.
Yeah.
Come on.
If you have not, just follow Ashely for her memes. Like nobody has made more or better memes than Ashely. But
I apologize to my coaches who have to coach me. I'm sorry, Shane Warren, for all of the memes that you get.
Yeah, just fantastic. I'm a GIF person. Like I respond to people in GIFs a lot. Like that's what I like. If I find the right GIF, I'm like, yeah, that was a good one. That was.
I will literally like go onto Canva super fast, and they're like, "How did you meme that fast?" I'm like, I know I'm banned from Canva, but I'm not really.
Yeah, I'm very good at it. I've built the muscle. But so Ashely, or I'm sorry, Amy, comes to this class, and she was always in the like anytime I'm trying to get smaller pants, smaller size, whatever it is, and she came in one day and she goes, I tried on a new pair of pants and they didn't fit because my butt was too big, and she gave me a high five. And I was like, oh, we've come so far. Like you've come so far, because she was like, that would normally put me into a panic and I would go on a crash diet. But like the idea is it doesn't fit because my glutes are bigger, because I've been trying to get stronger, and like it's a shift in the goals, and you can do it. But I love what you said here, is that because I think this is so important. Thin and fit are not synonyms.
No.
Because you can people lose weight and become thin for unhealthy reasons. Mm-hmm. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. You get the stomach bug and you lose like 20 pounds, 15 pounds because you can't eat anything. You're just throwing up forever. It's like, it's not like that was a healthy, like
you're mentally sick.
Yeah, mentally sick. Stress and anxiety and all of these things. We all know the person who, they just eat candy and they're thin, and it's just because like they don't eat, like it's I know several moms who are like this, who are just like from wake up to bedtime, they're just like feeding the kids and whatever, and they'll just like have like, what did you like, the joke of like, what did you eat today? Well, I had an iced coffee and a half a donut. It's like you had like four, you know what I mean? Like you had 400 calories, like you didn't eat anything today. And so, but that's
been me for the last 3 months, though, man. Like,
yeah,
and you feel like shit.
Yeah, no energy, and but you also have people who are the other side of it, where like, and I told this story on a thing, but like there was a guy, and Goodman has told a story like this, but I have a guy who works out at the gym who's got stage 4 cancer. And that dude has, and now he's fighting it and he's doing pretty well, but he's got stage 4 cancer and he's got a little bit of a belly. But like he's cardio, like he's cardiovascular, but he's healthy for this guy is like, I need weight because I'm literally fighting my body. Like I'm doing chemo. You know what I mean? Like,
is energy.
Like I have to, like he has to have this. He's got to eat, and he's like, it's his body's response to it. Like, now, there are these absolutes, and it's for your health, and you want to feel good, but it's not by the standard necessarily that like being thinner is necessarily being fitter.
Right. Well, and I don't remember who the original quote this is from, so I apologize to whoever the original quote is from. But it was, the size that you prefer to be at may not be the size that you perform the best at. What's more important? Right? Like, as I've lost weight over the last 3 months, my lifts have crashed.
Yeah.
I hate it. Like I'm now like setting alarms to eat, because I'm like, man, I feel weak as shit in the gym. Because your weight is gonna affect how much you're eating. Obviously, your caloric intake is gonna affect how much.
How many energies are you eating?
Yeah, how many energies are you eating? I love, that's all I'm gonna refer to it as now. All right, client, you have 2,200 energies to eat. How are
we gonna get? But even performance outside of the gym, so like thinking about life, so like, because this is, I think, a little bit one of the other things I wanted to dig into for you, because it's like strong as a mother, right? Like Amy, again, I'm gonna pick on Amy because she's on here all the time, but she's got a shirt that says that, strong as a mother. And I know that's like your brand,
Yeah,
like strong as a
that's
mother,
my
like mom strength, like,
tagline.
but like performing, what does that look like as mom, as dad, as whatever? Like, or Mike Boyle says this all the time. He's who's a great strength coach. He's like, most people aren't coming in because they want to deadlift 500 pounds. They're coming in because
Yeah.
they want to like perform in their daily life, right? They're not professional athletes. So they want to like go through life pain free and have energy to play with their kids. Like, what does performance look like? And so having the energy and be able to perform as a mom. So as you think about strength and performance and all of that as mom, as parents, as woman, what does that mean and look like for you as you think about that piece of it?
Yeah. So strong as a mother has a couple different aspects to it to me. One is, obviously the physical strength.
Yeah.
There's a lot of physical that goes into being a mom, right? Like, so my 11-year-old is 90 pounds probably. He had oral surgery and went under general anesthesia and was a freaking log in the car, right? Nobody else was home. I drove him. I had to lift him out of the car and carry him up 2 flights of stairs up to his bedroom.
Yep.
Right? Like, thank God I lift weights.
Yep.
That's 90 pounds of not just like, like even weight on a bar.
Yeah.
That was 90 pounds of like literal like floppy weight.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the reel that
I did.
Steven Strumus and I did together.
Yeah, so good.
And just how, because we were talking about how, why are you doing certain lifts, right? Like, what is your goal?
Yep.
Like your programming is going to reflect what your goal is.
Yep.
And if your goal is to keep up with your kids and just live, pain free, I don't want to say just live pain free because that's a huge thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
Then your training should reflect that, right?
Yep.
You should be doing a lot of single side work because as a mom, like, having little ones, you're always like this. And
I wrote this one day. This morning, it was like, being a parent is very similar to being not a parent. You just do everything with one or no arms. Like you just learn to do everything with a kid or 2 in your hands. It's just
I was thinking about my shoulders this morning because that's what we do as anatomy people.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, why do I have so much more internal rotation on this side than this one? And I'm like, oh, because I've been like holding on this side.
Yep.
Kids for 11 years, right? Like a child on this hip. Like my chiropractor calls it mom hip too, right? Yeah. Like it's pushed up and internally rotated.
Yep.
And I'm actually working with a coach to specifically like work on my hips and my back right now because they're messed up from a lot of different things. But I think, just our day-to-day life as moms and how like, before you do a deadlift at the gym, like you brace your core, you set, you like pull the slack out of the bar. Like, when you lift your kid off the ground, you're not like, all right, I'm going to lift my kid off the ground now, right? Like, I'm going to brace my core. I'm going to pull the slack out of my child, right? Like, like it's... I don't even know how that works. It doesn't. But,
that's one of the best quotes.
We're going to meme that. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, pull the slack out of my child. Who's the dude? It's like Beard the Best You Can Be. Have you seen him? Like if we lived life.
Yes, I'm gonna send you a video after this of me trying to do one of his videos.
Yeah, but it's the idea of like you train well to be able to do the day-to-day under a not controlled circumstance. Like you train under a controlled circumstance to do it in a not controlled circumstance. Like if you were an athlete, right? Like I played baseball. Nobody just stands there and throws you fastballs down the middle like you do in batting practice. But you train under a controlled circumstance so that when you have an uncontrolled circumstance, you're able to be as adaptable as you can be. And that's the idea.
When you're holding your 3-year-old in Target and they see the Bluey toy and they all of a sudden like go like this, like you need to be able to adjust, right?
Yep.
Or like right now I'm getting back into circus arts, right? Like I train, I haven't been able to in a decade. So my training needs to reflect that.
Yep.
Why are you training, right? I think that's the biggest question. And I think, like you said, a lot of people get caught up in the like, well, I want to deadlift 500 pounds. And I think we've all been there. No, I've never thought I could deadlift 500 pounds. There's been a specific number that I'm like, that's why I'm training. But is that my life? Right. No. So strong as a mother, yes, there's the physical aspect. And I do have a testimonial coming out next week with Sam too. It's another part of that interview of just being strong, she says, makes my life easier.
Yeah.
Right? Like, she's like, when I can go to Costco and pick up that 50-pound bag of dog food, sling it over my shoulder and throw it into the cart, right? Like, I don't have to go find somebody and ask them to get it for me and then to load it in the car. And like, she's like, I can, bend down while I'm holding my 3-year-old and pick up her backpack and her water bottle and this and not have to worry about throwing out my back. And like, she's one of my favorite stories too, because she put up a fucking retainer wall in her backyard by herself.
Just an animal. Love it.
She lifted 50 bags of cement.
Just
right. And she's a previous runner. She had never done any strength training until she started working with me. Yep. And she still runs. She's a monster, right? Yeah. But like, strength training is important because it just makes your life easier. And as a mom, who doesn't want their life to be easier?
Everything is hard. Everything is hard. Like, if you could make one, I said, my phrase is fitness is about freedom. Like freedom to say yes to things and to just do what you want to do without hesitation. Like, I can lift up the bag of dog food, even if I haven't trained for it. Like, or somebody asked me to go for a hike. I don't train to go hiking, but like, I am confident in my fitness ability that I could go do a hike and not get buried. Like I could just, I can say yes to things versus saying no to things because I'm not sure I can do it.
Like, do you want to go to the rock climbing gym? Yeah, sure. Like, I don't train for that, but I know my grip is good. I know my upper body strength is good, right? Yep. Like, am I going to kill it? Probably not, right? Like, I'm not going to be as good as the people who specifically train for that, but I can hold my own, literally and metaphorically, right? Yep. But, and then the other part of strong as a mother is the mental aspect of it. We talk about mental.
I would not have been surprised. I was like, which I love, which is so great. I was like, I'm pumped for this.
We talk about the mental load a lot of being everybody has their own mental load, whether you're a parent or not. The mental load is there, and that is what you're carrying at all times. But as a mom, there are a lot of things that are on our mental plate, and for a lot of my clients, I will literally draw out their mental plate so that they can see. Be like, we're so hard on ourselves of it's only 2 workouts a week. Why can't I get it? I should be able to do it. Like, you feel like that, but let me show you everything else that's on your mind, right? You're homeschooling 2 kids, right? This was one of my clients. You own a children's gymnastics gym.
Yeah, because why not?
You're married, which is a job in and of itself.
We're not easy. We're not easy. I'll own it.
Right? Like,
we're not easy.
You have 4 kids or however many kids she had. She's a couple stepchildren, which then is its own.
That's its own thing. Yeah.
Relationships with ex-partners and whatnot. Co-parenting. And then let's get down to the minutia of did I feed the dog this morning? Did I leave my hair straightener on? When was the last time the kids went to the dentist? Oh shit, their well child visit was supposed to be a month ago, and now I'm going to feel judged by the doctor because I'm a month late for their well child visit, and I'm going to look like a bad mom.
Yep.
Right? Like, oh, are they up on their vaccinations? Should I get them vaccinated? Are we doing that? Are we not doing that? What is society judging these days?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like all of the minute things of like just all of it. The homework after school. Oh, I'm supposed to sit down and help my kids do that? Like, but also run my business and like pack lunches and then get judged on what I'm packing my kids for lunch too. Like the judgment and the things that we're supposed to keep up with. And then I get in bed at night and you wonder if you've done enough, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
Because you've done too much.
Yep.
And what did you do for yourself?
Yep.
I told you, you know, I'm coaching with Shane.
Yep.
And when we had our enrollment call, he asked me what I want. What do I want to do for myself, right? Yeah. What is the purpose of like fixing my back, fixing my hips, becoming pain-free? What do I want to do for myself? It took me a week to answer this question. Like I was physically paralyzed because one, nobody had asked me this question in over a decade. And two, I had not allowed myself to think about what I wanted for fun.
Yep.
Right? Like what I really wanted to do. And it took a week of, and you know, I ask my clients this all. Well, what do you do for fun? Like what, like, but it took a week to finally come back and be like, I want to get back into circus arts.
Yeah.
Because of that mental load of like, we make decisions based off of everybody else. Because we feel like that's what we should do as a mom.
I ought to be doing this.
So you know, being strong as a mother too, I think is being strong enough to really do the work of putting yourself first and not the superficial bullshit of like, but I took a bubble bath and I, you know, things that like self-care. They are important, but of like, what do you really want?
Yeah. Oh, there's so much there.
It's hard work.
It is. Well,
being human is really hard.
Yeah. So I think about this a little bit, and by a little bit, I mean all the time. But the idea of...
And by a little bit, I mean it's the only thing I think about.
Because you think about what you do in a day-to-day, and I just talked about this on a podcast episode, but the idea of like, remember when you were in middle school and...
I try not to.
No, but like you have a moment where you could think about like you're at a middle school dance and you were like, oh, I want to dance with so-and-so, and you send your friend up to them and then they come back and the stakes of that, right? And like how and you look back on it and you're like, that's, you know, a little bit silly that we, you know, that was such a high stakes. If you dropped middle school you or high school you or even 5 years ago you into your life now, they'd get buried. Like, yeah, college me would not survive.
Oh no,
in my life right now. Like he'd leave. Like he couldn't do it. Like and the requirements are unbelievable, and the expectations that we place on ourselves or they're placed outside of us. So I think I'll share this story because I think I didn't share this necessarily publicly when it happened because my wife was like, yeah, maybe you don't go here, but I don't think that this will maybe necessarily get back to them. But it was a story from daycare, and I'm okay with it now. But it was a moment where it's just, again, this is where somebody says something and then how you perceive it and internalize it. So my 3.5-year-old is, you know, he's in the stages of potty training. Like he's pretty good with his peeing, whatever, but he he wet himself during a nap time at daycare. He goes 3 days a week.
Pretty
He wet
standard.
himself during,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Like he peed. And then so he's wet and they're trying to get in. I walked in and I see his sleeping bag kind of thing in a bag outside before I walk in. And so I'm like, okay, he wet himself. And I walk in. And the first thing that the daycare woman said to me was, he really needs to work on his self-help skills. And I was like, okay, like, well, what happened? Tell me what happened. She's like, well, he peed and then he couldn't get his clothes off. Like he wouldn't take his clothes off and get them back on. And I'm like, I mean, have you ever tried to get out of wet jeans? Like, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. He's probably a little bit traumatized because he just woke up and he's wet and he's a little uncomfortable and
he's 3.
And he's 3. And also, like, so she had said this 2 weeks prior, or maybe a week prior, because he had another accident, and she was like, hey, he hasn't quite figured out how to put his own clothes on. And I was like, oh, we hadn't even, so this was a guilt thing, right? Because we have a 3.5-year-old and we have 2-year-old twins. So we're just let's just keep the tiny humans alive, right? And so there's things where, like, you're like, oh, I didn't even realize that we should be teaching him to put his clothes on and off at this point.
Yeah, like, he's your first.
And so we've neglected to like be reading all of the books because we're focusing on keeping the tiny humans alive.
Books.
Yeah, and so it's just some of this where it's just like, oh, okay, like I didn't even realize that he should know how to put his clothes on and off by himself. Let's work on this. And so it had been like 10 days between that first one and this one, and we've been working on it. He'd been getting the hang of it. Like he was able to kind of do his pants kind of by himself. If we laid them out for him, we were like, okay, here you go. Like you can kind of do it. And he was getting pretty good at it. And we walked in and for a second time, and she said, he needs to work on his self-help skills. And I was like, man, like, I feel like we've been doing it and we're clearly not doing it well enough. Like he's just, like, that's how it went internally, was like, we're not doing it well enough. We've failed. Like all the other kids are clearly crushing this, you know, like it's the stories that we tell ourselves, is like, to go to your point. And I was just like, and so there's a part of me that, you know, got a little bit like, all right, this is like, I was able to process it and be like, all right, this is maybe an unrealistic standard. And maybe that she could have said this a little differently. And why was he just in there by himself if he clearly couldn't figure it out? But there's also, and he's 3.5, you know, like, you know,
the motor skills are just not there yet. Like the fine motor skills.
Yeah. But how I felt about it was, we're terrible parents. I came home and I told Megan, she's like, we're terrible parents. Like we're clearly not doing, like we're doing wrong by him. And like, what are we doing wrong? And all, like, anytime that there's anything, it's like, we're doing it wrong because all you see is the best of others.
Yeah.
All you see is, because social media is a highlight reel, right? We see the best of others. We see the bodies, right, of the Instagram models who did a crazy cut to get shredded, wore 50 different outfits, and now they have a labyrinth of photos and videos that they just post throughout the year, and that's not how they walk around. By the
way, like most of those women have plastic surgery, which I'm not against plastic surgery, but your natural body isn't going to look like that.
No. And so you have this standard that you think you ought to live up to. And I love the idea of being strong as a mother, because it's mentally strong to recognize, like, one, these standards are unrealistic, but also, what does strength look like?
Yeah.
Like how would you write it up for your kids? Like, what would you imagine if you could write your kids' life for them? What would you want them to be? And you would probably not say complicit, meek, follow all the rules.
No.
You would say confident and strong and kind, but powerful and willing to take risks. So if those are the things that you want for them, then if that's what you want for them, what do you want for you?
Yeah.
Because it can feel selfish. Like you talked about, like it can feel selfish to put yourself first. But I think you and I have both said and argued, and I think it's becoming a little bit more commonplace now, that it's actually selfish not to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the most amazing thing happened is, I got that aerial hoop out. We rigged it up in the tree, and I was like, I'm taking time every day to do this myself safely.
Mm-hmm.
And it is my time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only for me, right? But what happened was my daughter saw that.
Mm-hmm.
She came outside day 2 and she goes, and my daughter is, she has, she is a perfectionist
Mm-hmm.
and is scared to try things if she doesn't know she's going to do them perfectly. So,
Mm-hmm.
like group sports and stuff like that
Yep.
have been off the like we've tried. It
Mm.
just there's breakdowns, right? Because you're not going to show up day 1 and be
Awesome.
awesome, right?
Yeah.
She came out and she said, "Can I try?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, absolutely. Like
Yep.
this girl's asking to do something, absolutely." So I brought the hoop down, and this is not an easy thing to do. This is a
No.
spinning metal hoop,
Yeah.
right? So I get more mats out and
Mm-hmm.
she gets in there by herself and she's just a natural. And she looks at me and she goes, "Can I take lessons?" So today I signed her up for circus school.
Absolutely.
My child, who has never wanted to do anything, like she does voice lessons
Yeah.
privately and stuff like that. But that never would have happened if I hadn't decided to put myself first, figured out what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and gotten back into like my true passions. And who knows where this is going to go for her, right? This might
Yep.
just be a phase, but it's a step in putting herself out there.
Yeah.
Even if, she doesn't become a Cirque du Soleil performer,
Yep.
it's a step in trying something.
Yep.
And that's huge. It's a step in, moving away from I have to be perfect. Like she's asked to show up to a class where she's going to be the new person and not know what to do. And like that's enormous. So they're always watching.
I love that. Because not only does it shows like you doing something that matters to you, prioritizing yourself, but also trying something that's uncomfortable to some degree and hard, and like being willing to like, hey, like she probably saw you fall once.
Oh yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And she was like, oh,
And I'm
okay,
like
like
covered in bruises right now and
yeah.
like yeah.
And so it becomes a safe place that failure isn't failure.
Yeah.
That it's part of it. And you, but like, especially if perfection, because I think maybe this is a good place to wrap up here, because
Yeah.
when we think about trying to do any of this, right, perfection becomes very, especially when you're thinking about strongest mother, everything on your plate, right? I ought to be able to do it this way, right? Like if there were 2,900 hours in a day and I had endless energy, I could do all of this. But I posted a video 2 days ago of like, I got a thing for my mother-in-law. It was like a coaster, and it was a joke that was like, I'm going to butcher it, but I think it said, I don't always have time to do I don't always have time to fold laundry, but when I do, I don't.
Yeah.
And then I laughed about it, and then I walked into our laundry room, and I have 5 full baskets of laundry and a full dryer of, it's all clean laundry, but I just can't bring myself to fold it, right? And so it's this idea of like,
Why are we folding it? Is the question.
Well, it's mostly because I don't know where to put it. Like I can't put it anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely that, where like that's an example of a situation where you walk in and you feel like a failure. Like a good mom would get this together, or you find somebody on social media who's like, between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. I've done 6 loads of laundry and made muffins and like, brought my kids to whatever, and we did lessons, and I'm like, and you get people on there who are like, this is unrealistic, and you're like, all right, you don't need to go on the internet to call other people's lives unrealistic, but it might feel unrealistic. And so the standard can feel impossible, that we have to do it perfectly. And when we show our kids, like I love going back to what you said earlier, like you're looking in the mirror and you're like, oh, my legs look so powerful, right? This idea of like the way that we frame this for our kids is also how we ought to frame it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is, we do not need to be perfect. We just try again. Like the Daniel Tiger phrase, right? We try again. when we can't, because the idea that we're going to do it perfectly, and if we can't, then we don't do it. That's just with if we're trying to lose fat, right? Like the idea that we're going to perfectly adhere to our diet or our workout plan or our steps or whatever, like we're going to do this flawlessly, and then if we can't, then we don't. That's what keeps us, like has kept your daughter from doing anything. And when you make failure a normal part of the process and realize that it's not actually failure, it's just part of the process of success, that it gives them the freedom and them the freedom. Because I think so many parents, like all we think about is like, all right, like we talked about earlier, like the stakes of parenting are so high, like with how, a lot of stuff comes from our childhood. We're just constantly thinking about like, how do we do this well for our kids?
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is making it safe for them to see that it's safe to try and fail, but that the positive power of continuing to fall forward.
I feel like my job as a parent is to allow my children to fail safely, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to fall down the stairs. Mm-hmm. And I've watched my kids fall down the stairs.
Yep.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
Right?
That's not fun.
But they had to.
Yeah.
Because that's how they learn to go up the stairs.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to fail safely. Like, my clients have to learn how to bail out of a squat, right? Yep. Like, you have to learn how to safely bail. That's how you learn how to do anything. Same with the hoop. Like any position that you learn how to do in a circus performance, you have to know how to safely bail out of it, right? That's life. And being strong as a mother is not being perfect, right? It's being happy in your life and knowing that you're not going to be perfect and being okay with that.
Perfection's a prison.
Perfection is a prison. And it's taken a long time to get out of that prison for me.
I think it's a constant journey to get out of the prison of perfection, because we want to. But when we start to look at failure is where we know that we're pushing ourselves to get better. Like if you never fail at anything, you've never done anything.
Yeah. If you're not uncomfortable, you're probably not making progress.
Yeah. The phrase that I tell, and this is where I think it's helpful to have somebody in your corner, because the phrase that I always tell my kids is like, you can, like that when they want to try something, like, you can try it. I'm here if you need me. Like, yep. I'm not going to, I'm not going to overstep this, but like, give it a try. Like, you're here to do it safely, but I believe in you. Like, try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
But and you'll be judged by other parents.
Yeah.
For doing that, because there's a lot of helicopter parents, but we're very much a, like, let's fight swords and throw axes family. And you know what? That's fine. That's not for other people.
Because it's the idea of becoming anti-fragile. Like, I'm not easily broken mentally, physically, emotionally by life. Because life is not designed, life is not an easy thing, as we all experience.
And moms are not fragile.
Nope. No. And you're not fragile. Like, I think that's the biggest thing is like, with all the moms that I work with, I'm like, you hold up a mirror and you like, when you do this, when you like, look at all that you've done, like, you're not fragile. You're not incapable. Like, you are more capable than maybe we realize that we think that, that we are. And it's just like, let's steer into this, like, own your power. That was the most cliche thing I think I've ever said, but it's a little bit true of like, recognize that you are capable of doing so much.
You built a freaking human inside your body. Can we talk about that for a second?
You made
and then somehow got it out. You got it. It was painful, whichever way you got it out.
Yeah.
And then they just handed it to you and said, "Good luck.
Keep it alive.
Like, keep it alive." That's the most terrifying feeling of all time, is going home with that first, and you're like, "Wait a second."
We did that in COVID, and nobody could come see us.
Yeah.
It was the most terrifying.
And I was young.
Yeah.
I was 22, like, when I had my baby. So, like, not married, 22. Yep. Here's your baby. Okay.
I don't know how
I just graduated college. Like,
we have to go through 6 months of driver's ed to drive a car, but you just like get 2 days at the hospital and they're like, all right, keep
I was like, wait, can I stay here longer?
Yeah, can I move in? Can one of you move in with me? Like, what are we doing? Yeah. No, and I think to finish with the body positivity side of things, right? Yeah. Your body made a literal human, either pushed it out or got it cut out of you.
Yeah.
I
did both.
Yeah. Megan did both as well. She did one and then the other. Let's not make the standard for success how quickly you make it look like your body didn't do that.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah.
Like, that is a way more impressive physical feat than...
You have enough pressure on yourself right after you have a baby than what you freaking look like.
Yeah.
Yep. You're not sleeping.
No. Sometimes you're the only source of food.
Sometimes you're the only source of food, and sometimes you can't provide food.
Yep. Nope.
Because I've been both as well with that. Yep. I've been the sole breastfeeder, and I've been the one who was not able to produce, and that is then that's its own podcast of postpartum depression and like all of that stuff. But don't be so hard on yourself, man. No. And once you're postpartum, you're always postpartum. Molly Galbraith says that. Yeah. That doesn't mean you can't look freaking amazing.
No.
But your body is different.
Yep.
Treat it differently, train it differently, and be strong as a mother.
Yep. Thank you so much, Ash, for coming on and for all of this. I loved this. Hope everybody listening did. We'll give you an opportunity here. Anything you want? Where can people find you? Anything you want to plug? Anything like that? We'll link everything.
Yeah, my Instagram. Yeah, you can link that, and then my Facebook. I have my free Facebook group.
Yep.
Level Up Leaner and Stronger. I have fun free fitness challenges. We did a zombie apocalypse one there. That was super fun. So if you're into weird fitness challenges, join my group.
I'm sure she throws memes in there all the time too. And you can see memes. So many memes. But yeah, just really appreciate Ashely coming on, and definitely check her out. I'll link her, her Instagram and her group in the show notes for you to do that. If you're listening, this is the first time I'm ever going to say this, I think. If you're listening, please feel free to subscribe. Would love that. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe there too. If you have questions for me or Ashely, feel free to reach out to either one of us on social media or comment on the YouTube post, and we can dig into some more stuff there. And if you want to connect with us more, if you liked this, let us know, and we'll do stuff, because I loved having this conversation. It was great.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
Of course. We'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good.